Good morning and welcome to the June 22nd Strategic Planning, Technology and Transportation Committee meeting. The time is about 7:36 and I'm going to call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the agenda.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from March 23rd, 2022 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look at those?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve minutes.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Passes 4-0. Next on the agenda is the cell tower marketing agreement with Cola Moore and Jay Parker.
And there I go talking without unmuting.
Mr. Moore and I did the same thing, Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore and I have been partnering together on trying to find solutions to cover some of the deficiencies in cell phone coverage in areas in our district. Specifically, we started focusing on Weddington, Piedmont, and Parkwood. But Weddington, if you go to the front door of that school, the cell phone coverage is very poor. If you get within the school, it's even worse. And so this last year, we realized the dire need of having some kind of infrastructure accessibility around that entire campus. It's not just the high school, it's the middle and elementary. They're all on the same campus. They all experience it. So Mr. Moore and I got together and he brought some expertise from his previous job where he was using cell phone towers. And we started to explore other opportunities with ours too, to see what we could implement in the district. So as we moved into what we were doing, we started with our let me go back to sharing, Mr. Moore. We started with our cell phone towers just to see how it would work, and it worked. We found out that we could do it from here. There it goes. And part of the short-term solution was our first option was to do voice over IP, which as you know, with the technology, you can talk over existing internet, over internet phones. And we have been using this in our school district in the 2021-2022 school year. And we allowed staff to connect their personal phones to our network so that if they could not get a cell phone signal, at worst case, they could use it for texting and voice. If the internet provider allowed voice over IP, they could use it. But it was more of a communication method. If you can't get a cell phone, at least you're not totally without any communication. So this next year, we're planning to allow students and staff over our existing school network. It's what we call in a sub VLAN, which is just a virtual network within our school district. It's no cost to the school district at all. We utilize our current infrastructure. We can have this in by the time school starts. It's restricted specifically to voice and text. We will not allow internet over any of the devices, staff or students. Because of E-rate and filtering, we got to keep it just voice and text. We will control it. We'll apply the firewall rules. We'll make sure that people get out and we can monitor what they're doing on this network. But we haven't tested it yet with all of our students. We've tested with the staff. But we have not put a large amount of students on here also. Looking at our current bandwidth, we have the capacity to do this. So this is more of a short-term Band-Aid solution to get us over next year and try to get us through a short-term solution and allow staff and students to have communication within the school. But one note I'll put in here is that the students' firewall rules will not allow them to text or talk to each other while they're on our network. And that is really just to minimize disruptions in the classroom using a cell phone. But they can call out, they can text out to parents or guardians out in the district, and they can receive them into the school. So as long as they are, connected to our network, they'll have access to text and voice.
Is that via the personal device or via the Chromebooks?
It's a personal device. They'll use their personal cell phone to connect out and communicate. And one of our feedback avenues that brought to us was parents were having difficulty talking to their students and reminding them about medications or doctor's appointments or those type environments, just because the cell phone coverage is poor. So Mr. Moore and I met with some of the cell phone vendors, and we're starting to find solutions to implement and make a pathway for communication out of our schools in those areas. Mr. Moore?
Okay, so going back to the VLAN.
Yes, sir.
Basically, while they're on the VLAN, they can communicate over the VLAN to each other, but they can go outside the VLAN to communicate.
That is correct, and that was intentional with the firewall rule. Now, staff, if they connect their devices, they are allowed to talk to each other, text each other. Just students is the one that will have the restriction on.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Mr. Parker, thank you. So that was kind of our short-term resolution. So we're looking for a potential long-term resolution. And Mr. Parker mentioned my previous employment about a cell phone company that we had worked with there. We've worked a marketing agreement with this tower group out of Tennessee that likes to work with school systems. Worked with several in the Southeast, and basically they've got they call it a marketing agreement that they will come in if they communicate with all the cell phone providers. So they basically build a tower and then lease the space on the tower to cell phone companies. So they will do some analytics. Signing this marketing agreement allows them to go do some analytics of our properties and see where we do have weak service. We have identified, like Mr. Parker said, the Weddington, Parkwood, and Piedmont sites specifically as having a need. In addition to them looking at those sites, they'll also, if they are approached by a cell phone company and they say, look, we've got weak service in this area, they will specifically look for a school site. And that's the reason for that is that these cell towers will generate income. Order of magnitude, it's about $1,000 a month in leasing, and those are usually pretty long leases, 15, 20, 25 years. And then they'll also make a donation to the school once the tower is built. And I've seen that as much as $10,000. This is a non-exclusive agreement, and I just want to make sure you understand this is not a contract that we have to install a tower. They're just looking at sites around the county and seeing if they would match up to a school site. This not only going to provide better cell service on our campus, but it also gives better service for a 1 to 3 mile radius from the tower. One thing I've learned in this process, it's not about how often you've got towers, it's the amount of load that's going onto the tower. So the more people you have trying to connect determines how frequent you need to have those towers. I think Dr. Crafton made a good point once he called me the day after school was over and said, man, he said, all of a sudden I've got service in the building, and it's because you didn't have 2,000 students. So that's one of the things that we'll look at and see if we can identify school sites where we can do these. And then once we've identified the site, we'll negotiate a lease with this tower company, and then we'll present that to the Board of Education for approval. You will have the approval authority with all of those leases. So we're not signing a lease yet by any means. I've also included some information, a little bit more information about this marketing agreement as an attachment in the package. So you should have that as well. What we got pulled up here is just a couple of views of what some towers would look like. This is a standalone tower that's got some lights on it that would be for security. It's not like a stadium lights. We do have some pictures of those, but just a few photos of some different towers that this Vogue Towers has constructed. This one you can see being installed as part of a baseball field, a complex where they've got a tower, and then they can mount field lights on this tower as well. Same thing here. You can kind of see over to the left, Mr. Parker, I don't know if you can circle, but there's a tower over to the left that's got the actual cell tower, and then it's got lights about 3/4, so about 2/3 of the way up that act as lights for the baseball field. And then this shows you the area that they need. It's about a 25 by 25 up to a 50 by 50 area that they would need to, when they lease the land, they would have this area that would be fenced in, that would be the base of their tower. No guy wires or anything like that. And that's it. I'm gonna be glad to answer any questions.
What's
Question.
the time? Oh,
Go
go ahead, man.
ahead. I just had a question too
Well, I was
about
gonna say-
wedding. With Weddington, do we know their planning restrictions or anything like that as far as putting towers up?
Not specifically. I know that I think this was investigated a few years ago, and the site committee, the school determined that they didn't want a tower on the property. It wasn't Weddington, I don't think. But my understanding, Mr. Helms, and talking to Vogue when I was going through this in a previous employment, is that towns can't specifically prohibit cell towers as a utility that has to be provided. So they would be negotiating those restrictions with the town as part of their process. That would not be something we would have to be involved in. That's something that they would tackle as part of their due diligence in trying to construct those towers.
Okay.
It typically, from the time you get a site identified to the towers constructed is about a year. It doesn't take a year to build the tower, but it takes a year to come in and do due diligence, to research our deed, to make sure there's no restrictions in the deed to the cell tower. They will also communicate with the federal agencies about the tower. They'll also communicate with the local jurisdictions about the construction. Then they'll design it and build it. And that process, typically, the rule of thumb is about a year.
Okay.
Matt, I
And,
believe the high school is actually outside of the town limits or the city limits.
okay.
Mr.
Gary,
Helms,
did Gary have a question also?
Yeah, you started to talk about the timeline, Colin. Have you initiated contact with them? Have you started the process with them?
Yes, we have.
Are you looking for authorization today, or have you already started?
So we gave them the authorization to proceed with the marketing, just looking at the different sites. Again, they haven't been authorized under any contract for anything that we would have to pay for. They are currently looking throughout Union County to determine where the weaknesses are in the cell service, and we've identified those previously mentioned 3 campuses. This is more of an update that we're doing that, and then once they identify sites, we will bring that information to you for approval.
and one thing I wanted to highlight.
When would you anticipate them coming to this committee and the board with some lease proposals to actually get the ball rolling?
They would initiate the lease before they actually started having communication with the jurisdictions. So I would say as quickly as maybe 2 months, they could have something to us if they identify that if they can. Right now, they're communicating with the cell providers to say, look, if we get a tower at Weddington, for instance, do you have an interest in putting? So right now, they've initiated those conversations with the T-Mobiles, the Verizons, the AT&Ts, just to see, hey, do you see a need to lease some space on this tower? One other thing I failed to mention, but that is in the attached document, is if they build a tower on a school site, they give space on the tower to emergency responders. So the emergency management system in Union County would have space on that tower for no charge. So they put that on there as well. They described it really to me as like a vertical shopping center. It's basically they're building a shopping center and leasing the different spaces to different companies. So they would be providing the enhanced emergency management, 700 megahertz radio system on there as well.
So we, as follow the timeline through, we would hopefully have the selected sites up and running by this time, 2023. Is that a fair timeline?
We could potentially have it up that quickly, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
One more, I got a question too, as far as there's normally a generator involved with these. I didn't see that in any pictures.
Mr. Parker, I don't know if you can go back to that one. I don't know if that ground shot showed, they typically put that kind of thing, Mr. Helms, on the, in that little fenced in area. I don't know that the picture we have shows that.
I don't see, yeah, because typically they have a backup generator to power in the event of a power outage.
Okay. I will, I'll confirm it. I'll see if I can't find a picture for you of what maybe that generator looks like. The previous pictures I've seen show the generator on those little fenced in areas.
Yeah. And then the other thing, have we reached out to individual vendors about putting repeaters in the schools also if this doesn't work out?
Yeah. So we did meet with AT&T, and T-Mobile's offered solutions to put repeaters or boosters in the school. AT&T offered to put the first 3 repeaters in Weddington High School. It will encompass 3,000 square feet of coverage on each of the repeaters. So you're talking about 9,000 of 120,000 square feet coverage, but it only allows 192 concurrent connections over that. So really the repeaters that we're putting in the school provide almost no effect for our cell phone coverage.
Yeah.
You're looking at 2,000 people in a school, and then only 192 can use the repeater. So we thought the voice over IP free solution would be a much better band-aid until these Vogue towers are built, and that allowed the at least connectivity and communication until that point.
Okay.
Okay. If there's no more questions, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'd just like to thank staff on this issue of being proactive. That self-service in today's life, emergencies, student emergencies, parents need to reach out to students. It's critical, and I appreciate the staff being proactive for solutions on this.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's definitely a security need. I mean, not having cell coverage is not good.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Being a former Board of Adjustment chair, I didn't have a whole lot of questions because my question really was answered some years ago dealing with these towers, and everything they were saying is right in line with the presentation we received for the multiple towers that were set up in Union County. And so I just want to, like Gary, I just wanted to commend staff because cell towers is something like right now, I'm on the Monroe bypass, and I'm just praying that I don't go out because the coverage here is we may have a live count of the power of the cell tower on this bypass because coverage dies sometimes. So thank you all for getting that done, and it is commendable the options that we have bought, the options, and I hope the citizens as they listen realize the plethora of options that we're not just singly focused on a provider, but just the options. So thank you all for bringing options to us.
Thank you, Jimmy. Ironically, you broke up a little bit during that, but thank you. All right, there's no more questions on this. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the technology update with Jay Parker.
I just wanted to bring some items back to you and highlight some current technology updates in our district. The first one is Google Cloud. Google Apps for Education, it was founded in 2006. It's been around since then as a free service, allowing staff and students to use the cloud storage, use their words, which and their Excel sheets, which they call spreadsheets. Is the same as Excel. But the event of this is that Google will now start charging for cloud storage. And as you know, cloud storage has become competitive and also expensive. So Google, as of December, informed all K-12 school districts, colleges, and universities that they will impose quotas on cloud storage. Union County Public Schools was allowed 200 terabytes of data as our district, and we were currently using 124 terabytes of data at this time. So as a solution, we met with the Google representatives, came to Union County. We planned out an action path to resolve all of this. And as you can see below, starting July 5th, we will impose limits on our staff using Google Cloud Storage. That, as you can see, it's 15 gig for students, for staff, and 3 gig for students. This will actually have impact on our staff because they need to reduce the amount of documents that they have in their cloud storage, especially large cloud storage items such as pictures and videos. And they need to start working to reduce that before this July 5th implementation. We've been communicating with staff about it. We put a lot of frameworks around it, support documents on how to move it to other platforms such as OneDrive, Microsoft OneDrive, using it to your personal drive or using it to your desktop. But we have to get below these storage, and this is impacting all K-12. So as we look, what happens if you do go over the limit? If you're over your 15 gig, you can upload new files into your Google Drive. You also are restricted from any videos, any photos. You can't create any new files. So that's from your sheets and slides and the typical stuff that we use Google for, and even using it for forms, because we use Google a lot of times just for electronic forms. And those that use Google Meet won't be able to even record with it. But you still can sign into the account. You just can't make any changes or edit it. And where that impacts us is on the Canvas side and other instructional areas where you have links to those cloud storage. Once you move those files, you have to go back and relink all of your documentation or instructional plans. And that is a huge impact for our staff. And we started this a couple months ago, talking to all of our principals and trying to prepare for this. Google will not allow extensions of time, so we're expecting us to be in the first wave of the July quotas. So we're planning for July 5th restrictions with this. So Google is following suit with all the other vendors and charging for their space in the cloud. This is an example of what users will see when they exceed the limits or they're getting close to it. You will see this message pop up and tell you what you're using of your allotted space and how much you have free. So that will be part of when the quotas are applied, what users will see on both sides. For the staff and instructional laptops, I wanted to talk about from 2017 to now. In 2017, we implemented 3,200 Microsoft operating systems. These were Lenovo laptops, L570s. We included accidental damage and warranty reimbursements for repairs. In the 2021, we did an evaluation of these for compatibility. They seem to still be working. They met all of our standards. We put a lot of preventative measures in place for repairs and got these where they would last for the full 5 years. We sent out a proposal, an RFP on May 2nd and left it with sealed bids until May 27th. We received those back on June 2nd. We reviewed all of our vendors. We created a master spreadsheet, of course, and we identified 3 of our vendors, which was about 12 vendors that submitted bids. 3 were identified, and we asked for sample units from those vendors, and we're waiting all of them to send them in. A final rubric scorecard and recommendation for purchase we'll put on the August 2nd Board of Education meeting, which just follows our 5-year refresh on staff instructional laptops. When our teams come together, they will look at this scorecard. This is the way we rate each one of these vendors. We give them a weighted average, and then we come up with the person that we make the recommendation for. But it's based on all of these, and then there's other factors, not only price, it may be a complete package of service offerings from vendors. If they're offering above and beyond what these are here, that comes in play too, where, you know, that may be a factor we need to consider when we're making a decision. Cybersecurity. These are the top 5 cybersecurity attacks on school districts. They've gone up 60% over this last year. We see denial of service attacks happening 3 times or more per week. We can auto mitigate a lot of these. We're now screening out over 70,000 emails a month coming into our district for phishing. So that has definitely kicked up the spam and phishing area. The one I see most is the impersonations, whether impersonate Board of Education or they'll impersonate our leaderships, trying to solicit for money, gift cards, trying to get your user credentials and get in. Ransomware is always at the top of our list of concerns. We've implemented many cybersecurity infrastructure elements to protect us, and we're working towards all of these. We look and focus on every day and try to mitigate and make these as low a risk as possible for our district. As far as the technology roadmap, you're used to seeing this from 2017. We made a roadmap through 2023. We updated that and made it now all the way through 2026. The items in red have been completed. The items in black are still either pending or have been put on hold during this time. It's always good to know where you're headed, and so it keeps our staff focused on the direction of the big projects looming on the horizon. And as you can see, next year as our final year of lease, you know, that we've got with the student Chromebooks in 6 through 12. So those will be coming back also up for an RFP and a bid for the 6 through 12 Chromebooks. But as you can see through the cycles, everything in red has been completed. Everything in black is still pending. We also reach out in the future if we can see something we can accomplish sooner. We always go out there and try to get that done as quick as possible using the funds that we have and the staff that we have on hand. For projection devices, that gives you the projection device path. And in a matter of a few years, we were able to replace 72% of our projection devices. These are your TV, smart panels in classrooms. We're taking down the old bulb projectors and replacing those with high definition devices. So now you can teach with lights on. You can actually use these for interactivities, touch screens. And as you can see, we're at 1,800 of 2,400 classrooms. So when school starts, we should be right at that 72%. And we used ESSER funding all this year to refresh our district and provide the best devices for instruction we could. And they will be compatible with all the new laptops that are coming in with an HDMI port. So just so you know, that was considered as we went into these new devices. That's all I have. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Jay? Okay, if not, okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, just a comment. Jay, thank you for the information on the cybersecurity. As we discussed last night, that's an item on our budget that we are going to have to shift around. I think it's a high priority to protect staff, the system, students' information, and we all know how critical, how disruptive it would be if any of those services are compromised. And just personally, I think that cybersecurity is of the highest priority, and I appreciate you and your staff's work in that area.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That cybersecurity vault that is on there for capital expense, that verifies the digital signature of all of our backup files. So that reassures us that the files that when we have in storage and have to restore will both be valid and usable for our district. And our ultimate goal is to protect all our resources. We have students, staff information, we have parental information in there. So we're trying to protect all of our budget, and it's in our databases. So all of that is housed and we protect it as much as we can. We have a cybersecurity analyst, so that's all they focus on each day. but it's become the forefront of all K-12 school districts of cybersecurity. There's a breach almost every day. You can see it in the news of a school district. And once there's a breach, it's $4 million or more and time to bring it back up. So it's a serious concern.
Jay, unless Gary, you had a follow-up.
No, please help yourself.
Jay, as I like to say, is there anything that you're not in need of? Is all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed? Is there anything that technology is in need of that you're, well, I won't put this forward right now for whatever concerns there may be, or is this the complete package? You're bringing forth everything that our technology folks are in need of.
Yes, sir. Reverend Benson, we have taken many preventative steps, and we've reached out to DPI also for some advice from their technical teams. Currently, they gave us a product called CrowdStrike, and that is an industry leader in endpoint protection. There's a $350,000 donation. They gave it to Union County Public Schools. It runs silently in the background, so when you turn on your computer, it actually verifies your device before it lets it on the network. And we also have done penetration testing. Fortune 500 companies called Kenna and BitSight, microcomputers of North Carolina, have also completed those over the last quarter. And they look for our vulnerabilities, and we look for resolutions in those. It's a serious topic that we take. We all meet and have some hard discussions on how we can prevent any breach of data or any leak in our district. Naturally, it's difficult and hard because K-12 school districts are typically not as funded or not as staffed as large corporations. So that means that we just have to pay more attention, and we have to put in more preventative steps. So every opportunity we get to, we're looking to protect Union County Public Schools staff, students, and community from any kind of cyber breach.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really appreciate the offer or the update. It looks like there's a ton of information going, or a ton of work going on in your space, and it is enlightening to get a glimpse into your world and see everything that we have going on. So much appreciated.
Thank you, sir.
And I do have a couple of questions. As far as the Google Cloud storage, we currently have 200 terabytes, you said?
Yes, sir.
What's the price increase if we want to up that?
If you double the 200, if we doubled the 200 terabytes to 400, it's $1 million a year.
Wow.
Really expensive. Whereas I'll give you the offset of that. Our Microsoft OneDrive, we have 14 petabytes. That's 14,000 terabytes of free space over on OneDrive. So Microsoft is putting all of their resources into school districts now, and trying to, I guess, encompass all their business. And Google's trying to keep what they have now, but they just can't afford to give it away for free. So they impose the limits, and quotas are coming. As a result, we'll utilize our OneDrive, use our Google Drive, use local resources such as external hard drives or laptops to complete school business. It's hard as a shift, and change always happens in technology. And if you're not changing, you're not moving forward for sure, because the technology changes so fast every day. It's a constant learning process. It's a constant planning. You have to be agile in every method that you determine.
Because I know 3 gigs is not a lot.
It's not
for students with the Chromebooks being limited capacity locally. So, and then the other thing I saw, I know one of the cyber threats you had, the man in the middle attack.
We did.
I guess if you want to make sure, going back to the cell phone tower discussion with the VLAN connecting to Wi-Fi locally at school, if they can get to the internet, it's more likely a man in the middle attack, So watch out for that.
Yes, sir.
Maybe get some parameters.
We'll pay attention and make sure that those are restricted, or we make some kind of accommodations for it.
Well, I guess make sure students know
Mhm.
what kind of student training on that. So what to look out for, you know.
Yeah, when we do offer our voice over IP, we're going to do a pre-shared key so that the student devices that are in our district, they'll pick up when they're inside the school. If they're sitting outside our school, then they won't be able to, naturally get just a couple yards from the front of the school without the loose coverage immediately.
Okay. And the other thing, you mentioned August 2nd, Board of Education meeting, you have the final rubric for the staff laptops.
Yes, sir. Once we get all the devices in, there'll be a full review with academics and technology. We'll complete these scorecards and come back with a recommendation on what we think would be the best device moving forward for the next 5 years. And as we look off into the future, we made sure that all of these devices will be have the capacity to run the heavy applications that tax so much of usage on a laptop now. And so we really beefed up all of our laptops and provided extra resources there. But our plan is to come back to the August board meeting with a recommendation and a scorecard complete.
Okay. I didn't know if we need to have a July meeting for the SPIT to have that on the agenda.
Yes, sir. I'm open to anything that y'all want to do.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the transportation update with Cola Moore. And again, thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
All right. Did my transportation update screen share?
Yes, I
We can see it.
Okay. All right, good. All right. Yeah, just want to run through a quick little update for things going on with transportation. First thing I want to update you with is Smart Bus project. So we've got that process, as you know, we've instituted, I think back in April. We've got GPS units installed in all the buses so far. Right now we're waiting on the new tablets to arrive so that we can we install those in the buses. Those are actually right now being programmed by the manufacturer. So we anticipate those being here pretty soon. I had an inspection with NCDPI about 3 weeks ago. That's an annual inspection that we have that's done by DPI, and they come in, they're here for 4 or 5 days. They randomly inspect 10% of our fleet. So I think this year it was about 19 or 20 buses that were inspected. As I said, this was done the week of May 23rd, and we received a score of 33.89. And these scores are a lot like golf. The lower, the better. So you want to have a lower score. Our score was lower than the North Carolina Central region. They divide the state up into 3 regions, and I think they've got 3 inspectors that are over those regions, which is why they give you the region average. Region average was 34.21, and we scored 33.89. We do have some room for improvements. Mr. Joyner, Mr. Denton, and I have had conversations about some goals we want to set with those scores going forward. But just want to give you an update where we are on that. Pretty satisfied with the amount of turnover that we have had in the transportation department, especially with mechanics. I think we've done it. The fact that we're below the region average is a pretty good win for us. So we want to continue to make that better and improve our scores every year. Quick propane bus update. 2 buses are in Greensboro right now waiting NCDPI approval. You may remember that you authorized purchase of 5 of those. We, as I mentioned, got 2 of them in Greensboro. 3 of them are still in Oklahoma, getting ready to be shipped. We don't have a confirmed ship date, but we do anticipate all 5 of them being in Union County by first week of August. We are currently working on some infrastructure at the transportation center that will allow us to fuel those, fuel those propane buses. So that's really all I've got. Transportation update. I do have Mr. Joyner on the call with us. If you have any questions that maybe I can't help with, or he can answer.
One question:
Go ahead.
is the state doing the efficiency ratings this year, or are they still on hold with that? The transportation department?
Mr. Joyner, can you help with that answer? I don't know for sure if they're doing that.
Yeah, so we have not heard anything on that this year, Mr. Helms.
Okay. And then with the smart bus project, that's replacing all the GPS units and all the buses?
Yes, sir. So all of our yellow buses that we plan to run next year, plus our spare fleet, they have been, it's been installed. And we have some new buses we're still waiting on. Of course, those haven't been put in yet, but they finished that up last year.
Okay. And refresh my memory, what was the vendor, and can we still use the, where's Here Comes the Bus app?
It will be switched over. It will not be the Here Comes the Bus app. It'll be with a new company, but it'll have the same features. Parents will still be able to track the buses, and hopefully it'll be actually better for the parents.
Okay, and I guess we'll have communication going out for the
Yes.
parents before school starts so they can get switched over and everything signed up correctly.
Yes, sir. We'll have, we're working with communications to roll out a plan for that.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions?
I have a question or two.
Okay,
Do we have sufficient driving staff on hand to handle our summer sessions?
Yes, we have so far. We've had no issues finding summer workers.
How do we stand as far as vacancies for the start of school?
So right now, we're right at 8 vacancies, but we also have some that are planning retirement in early August. So we're looking at maybe starting 15 short. We do have a couple in the
15
pipeline.
15 short, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, that's actually an improvement.
It is, yes. Definitely an improvement from last year.
Great job. Great
Thank you.
job.
Brian, do you have a lot of, I think you've got a CDL class this summer. Is that correct?
We do. They're virtual. We're having pretty much, we have a class every 2 weeks. We are the week after July 4th. Our DMV instructor is holding an in-person class here. We want to see if we're going to have better results from in-person classes.
You getting pretty good participation in those?
We have one right now enrolled for the in-person. So.
Good.
and with the propane buses, what schools are they going to? Do we know?
Well, they're all going to be housed out of our gold mine facility. They'll be parked here. So the buses, here at Gold Mine, they serve a Monroe cluster, Sun Valley cluster, and Weddington cluster. So we haven't determined exactly which routes will be attached to those buses yet. They'll probably be kind of spread throughout with all 5 of them. But we needed all 5 of them parked here for fueling
Just
purposes.
because yeah, okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, go
When
ahead,
those-
Mr. Chairman.
When those,
Well, another question I had too. I know a few roundabouts are being put in the summer. Do we have plans in place if they don't get installed in time?
Yes, our routing departments, we get the updates from DOT. So the buses, the routes will be planned accordingly to accommodate that construction.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then Jimmy, do you have a question?
I think Gary was trying to chime in.
go ahead, Jimmy. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say to Brian and Colin, like I said to Jay, are we bringing everything to the table right now as far as needs and concerns? Because one of the things that happen is, we have these meetings and then, we react, and then later on something else is out there. I'm just the kind of guy that likes to see what all is needed, and we kind of go from there, kind of thing. So is there things that maybe you're trying to hold in your back pocket because you feel as though it might not make it? I like to try to get all those things out.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything. I think we've got everything brought to you, to your attention that we are aware of. So I appreciate your asking, but I think we've presented everything that any of the wants and needs that we have right now.
And the reason that I ask these questions is because, I care about you all deeply. I ran into a facility couple the other day coming out of the Skinny Cook, and just conversating with them. So this is something that I know that our school system, as large as we are, facilities is the heartbeat of this thing.
Mhm.
You all do so much. Yes, I'm a coach, but I have come to find out that if we don't have good facilities leadership, which we do, we can be in a hurt locker. So thank you, Colin, for just coming in, taking this by the reins and providing excellent leadership to our facilities, transportation, all of those tentacles that come under your purview. You are doing just an outstanding job, and I am so glad that we have you, sir. And Brian, thank you for what you do.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate that, Reverend Benson, but with all due respect, I've got a lot of good directors that are in this department. So that's a pat on the back to this district. That's not to me, but I appreciate all the hard work those guys put in.
Hey, leadership, never forget that. Leadership. Those guys can't do what they do without leadership. Without leadership.
That's right.
So
You get the credit and take the blame.
Yeah.
Take the blame. So don't be afraid to take a compliment.
I appreciate that.
Take it and accept it because it's well deserved, because those guys can do what they do because they have a leader that cares about them and gives them the wherewithal. A bad leader can pollute the whole bread. And thank God our bread rises.
Yep.
Brian, I have a question about the propane buses.
Yes.
Are those more expensive to purchase? They cost more initially. Is their per mile cost or their operating cost lower than the gas or diesel buses? So in the end, it's a savings, or is it purely an environmental issue?
So these were funded through the Volkswagen settlement, so we didn't really get into the cost of them because they funded that. But we're gonna have to see. They tell us that the operating cost of them will be lower because they won't have to have the maintenance that a diesel engine would.
Oh,
And what's the fuel cost between propane and diesel? What's the price difference right now?
Propane, I'll have to look at the latest. I think propane's cheaper, but it's not quite as they don't get quite as many miles per gallon. So
Okay. And
what is it costing?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, what is it costing us to set up the infrastructure at the transportation center to be able to handle the propane and refuel?
We've got that information to provide.
yeah, I can provide you that information, Mr. Sides. I don't have it in front of me, but I can send that over to you guys.
If it's not significant, not a big deal. Is there any discussion either on the state level that you're aware of trying to experiment with or piloting electric school buses like public transportation uses?
Yeah, so right now they have been talking about it, but we've decided right now to stay with propane just for the infrastructure. The infrastructure for electric will be more significant for us to install. So right now we've decided just to stay with the propane since we have the infrastructure being installed.
I can imagine with the electric, the infrastructure probably your biggest cost versus the buses.
Mhm.
Charging stations and replacement.
Because I mean,
And the cost for an electric bus, just the electric bus alone, is right at between $300,000 to $400,000 for one bus.
not that I don't already have a reason to come visit you good folks, but I'm particularly when those propane buses come in, I'd be very curious in seeing or experiencing one versus a diesel, just seeing it, the differences in operation.
Okay, sounds good. Well, when we get them in, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
And going back to the propane too, do we have a vehicle that can refuel those in the field if needed?
The contractor who provides the tank will come out and refuel for us if needed.
Okay. In the field?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, if we
perfect.
need to, yes.
Okay. And then from a budget standpoint, I guess the state handles the fuel costs and everything. How are we handling that right now?
Yeah, the fuel will be covered by the state on the state end.
Okay. Well, I guess just in general, like diesel fuel and everything. How's that going right now with the price increases and everything?
Well, we were very fortunate this the school year we just finished. If you all recall, we did a fuel pre-buy the end of the 2020-2021 school year. So we actually did not have to purchase fuel at the cost. We were paying $2.36 a gallon is what we bought the fuel for last June, the pre-buy. I think we bought $1 million of it. So we didn't start paying the higher prices till I believe it was April. So that really helped us a lot this year and left us in a good place.
Okay, it's too bad we can't do that for 2 years before, but okay, yeah. Does anybody else have any questions?
No,
Not
sir.
me.
Comment? Okay, well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Colin, for the update.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is the closing items, information to be taken to the full board. We had no action items. If we could provide, I guess, the information updates to the full board, that would be good. And Michelle, we have the next meeting day scheduled for August 24th, but we may need to have one in July for the staff laptop purchases potentially.
My understanding is that would hold till August, but Jay will let us know if he needs anything sooner.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, our next meeting day is scheduled for August 24th at 7:30 a.m. And with that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.